Well, welcome to my first drone video. I'd like to introduce you first of all to the Mavic Pro Clone from Wish. I purchased this from Wish. It came in July, and you're going to get to see how it is firsthand. It comes in a nice little case, zipped up. It comes with extra propellers if you happen to break it, and some propeller guards which come in handy when you're flying close to buildings or inside. And it comes with a charge cable, which I'll talk about a little bit later on. The drone itself folds up just like the Mavic Pro does, and as you unfold the top two arms, then you can unfold the bottom two. The first thing I noticed was the actual size of this drone. Like, that is not very big. I mean, it is pretty small for a drone, so I'm very skeptical when I first got it as it was going to be of any value to me at all. The second thing I noticed was that the camera on the front of it doesn't look at all like the picture of the phone on the Mavic Pro, which I've never seen up close. So when they advertised 4K, yeah, I got my doubts there too. And they have a little antenna on the back, and I'm behind the antenna. If I can flip this up, let me just turn it over here for a second and pop the button, and out comes the battery pack. Now that I thought was pretty handy. More about that too later on. The battery packs, I purchased this kit and it has 3 battery packs, which are very handy because you're going to want to fly it for a bit of time to get used to it, for one, and then afterwards. The controller itself is made out of a cheap feel plastic, although it does have the cell phone, which I used a iPhone SE to do video with it, and that turned out pretty good. It stayed in there nice and tight and worked well with the drones. So battery cover keeps falling off. I guess I got to find a screw. Mine didn't come with a screw in the back, so you can see there's a spot for the screw. So I should find one to stick one in there. And it has some interesting functions on the top of it. I believe one of them is a return home and that kind of stuff, which, well, let me put it this way. I've had it for a couple of weeks and I have not tried those. And these buttons are your trims, your forward, back, left to right trims. They're very, very handy. And the auto up and auto down buttons. So it controls pretty good. Now, getting back to the battery packs, they didn't come in the styrofoam or in the package like that. So I cut a slot for my batteries. And then I created this little card that says charged, so that once the batteries were charged, I could put them in there and I could tell the difference between a not charged battery and a charged battery. Once I used the battery, I turned the card over, stick the battery back in there again, and now I'm aware that that particular battery, or those batteries that are in there, do require a charge before I use them next. Charging is very handy. They come with a standard USB port that you would have for your typical Android cell phone, and once you plug it in the right way around, you take the other end of your USB port and you plug it into pretty much any USB circuit. Now, granted, it takes longer to charge on a 1 amp circuit rather than a 2 amp circuit, so just keep that in mind. So, having said that, I will take you out and I'll show you my first flight. I'll just put this away first of all, and we'll go out onto my front deck, my deck table, and we'll take off from the deck table and go from there. Here we go. Flew off the table, down over a couple of trees. Now, flying at approximately 8 feet, it was pretty interesting. I have a big cherry tree right there, and I stayed under the branches quite easily. Once you set the height, it seems to maintain the height quite well. So then all you're having to do is maneuver it around. So I was able to, in my very first flight, fly it back to the table. And in the second flight, I decided I was going to go for a little walk. So I set the drone in flight, and then I walked out onto the road in front of my house. Now, you can see here that I haven't walked away yet. I'm just fooling around trying to learn how to gain control of it here. Say hi to me. That's me. And what button does what? Okay, so a little trim this way, a little trim that way. This is what I'm trying to do here, is trim it, and then so that I can get it to fly in one spot rather than when you let go of the controls. If you have it trimmed correctly, it'll just stay in one area depending on the wind. And turning it around is interesting because if it's facing you, your controls are backwards. So you have to kind of get used to that too. So let's go out onto the road out in front of my house, and flying approximately 12 feet off the ground here at the moment. And I aimed it to go down the road, and I'm walking behind it, and it was kind of a comical situation. As I was walking along the road, my neighbor across the road, an elderly lady, she was out working on her front yard. And she said, "Oh, how are you doing this morning?" And I said, "Good." She says, "What are you up to?" And I said, "Just taking my drone for a walk." And she's looking down at my feet up and down the road, looking at me kind of strange. And then I pointed up into the air. By that point, it was about 15 feet up in the air. And she laughed. She goes, "Oh, I've seen one of them before." She didn't even see it. She could hardly hear it. It does make quite a buzz, but I suppose if you're, have certain tones you don't hear, well, then you probably wouldn't hear this drone. So it was kind of cool. It kind of, this particular day isn't very windy. It was early in the morning, about 8 o'clock in the morning. So, and I found that, that seems to be the best time to fly it. Keeping in mind that it is small, that the wind will carry it. And even a breeze causes it to change its direction or to blow a little bit. When you trim it in one direction, and as you're flying it, let's say from the east to the west, you set your trim so it stays, moving along nice and easy. As soon as you turn around and try to fly west to east, now your trims are all different because of the slight breezes it was compensating for are no longer there. So I found that a little bit interesting, and you had to work with that. Once I've flown it a little bit around by about 15 feet, I decided to, okay, so let's put some height on this thing and see how I didn't want to go up too high, but that's my next door neighbor down the road, and you can see I'm above the power lines now for a change. And there's my place, the truck and the car in the driveway, and I'll just fly around my place today just to see if I can keep it out of the trees. And my neighbor down there working, and there you go. There's that big cherry type of tree that's in the way all the time. And yeah, it's fun. That's my front step, my front door. My house looks pretty small from the back, but up in the height up here, you can see that it's quite large. It's quite a nice house, actually. Been living here for a few years, and I enjoy it. And you can see my back deck down there on the back of the house. Don't want to get too close to that cherry tree. And again, you're trying to be careful with the breeze. If the breeze picks up, it'll flurry into a tree in a hurry. So I'm being very cautious of that. But all in all, for a cheap camera, this is definitely not 4K, and probably more like 540. But it is, it does pretty good. I can see quite well around, and you see my neighbors over their fence into their pool. I've never seen that view before. Not that I was interested in going that way, but you never know. I might go for a walk down the road again. And you can notice that one thing I noticed about this drone is every time you compensate left, right, or forward to back, because the camera isn't on a gyro itself, you can actually see the camera jump up and down or side to side as I'm compensating. So, and that's why the camera video is a little bit jumpy, is because I'm trying to maneuver it or control it from the wind or a breeze or something. So you're not going to want to fly this one even in a little bit of a breeze, too much of a wind or whatever. So, and because I was farting around with this particular one for a while, the battery, lasted approximately 10 minutes for me. I would expected it to go a little bit longer. This is, I'm wondering if maybe it was because the battery wasn't charged to begin with. And it, they say the Mavic Pro is supposed to last half an hour. Well, I got approximately 10, maybe 15 minutes out of this particular battery pack, so that's pretty good. I mean, got a little bit of height above the cherry tree there, and you can see how the camera's jumping up and down, and that's because I'm trying to compensate for being pushed away. I don't want the drone to fly over my house. I was trying to keep it back. So every time I tried to maneuver backwards, it would jump like that. So what I'm noticing firsthand, remember this is my first flight, was the more you use the trim to move you back like that, the less jumpy it is. And that's it. That battery, it landed on its own because the battery was dead. So I replaced the battery and I took off again. Nice to have extra batteries. So this time I decided to set the height at around 8 feet, 6 to 8 feet, and I flew around my front yard with it, avoiding the trees and the branches. I'm underneath the tree branches, which is kind of cool, and you can see the hedge down the left-hand side. That I was easily able to avoid that and go down the side of my house. So I was able to actually fly this thing right down between the tree hedges and my house while maneuvering through the gate myself. So I'm kind of walking behind it here, following it along. Obviously, I'm not above the hedges to the left, and I got to be careful not to fly into them because it'll hook up in there. Flying over my my little garage, tent garage, and my shed in the background. And that's the end of my property and goes off into a field area. And now you'll have a look around. You'll see my fire pit and my pile of brush. Not there anymore. I cleaned it up. And the back of the house and my silhouette of my grandson on the shed. What I'm going to try to do here is I am going to try to look in the bedroom window. Now, my wife was in the bedroom sleeping still. She likes to sleep in a little bit later than me. And being that it's 8 o'clock in the morning, she's in there sleeping. So let's just go up close to the window and see. Now, remembering now, I'm watching the video from the cell phone. So I can actually see what the camera is seeing, which is handy. And I'm trying to maneuver so that I can see in that window. Now that's my bedroom window, my master bedroom window. And I don't know about you, but I can't see anything except my own reflection in there. Which is great. It's good to know. And so I try to trim it here so that I can hover in one spot. And it's quite difficult sometimes if the breeze is coming around the house or over the roof, you'd be surprised on how difficult it is just to try to maintain and keep. So this turned out pretty good, this section right here. And, how close should you get without actually hitting it? Well, I don't know. I probably should lose a little bit of altitude while I look in the window. But in the meantime, I can look at the siding of the house and make sure it's all right. I can look underneath the heat trough maybe. Yeah. So more video of the window. I was still trying to see if I could maneuver a little bit to change the angle. But eventually I gave up. And I flew up to see a little bit of height. I was thinking that maybe that hedge I can see out the front. And again, I've got big trees on my left, and I have that hedge on the right. So, and then there's the big trees, and there's my back deck. Now, I got a dog there. I'm going to see if I can get closer to the dog. What I found as soon as I went down the left-hand side of my house, you don't see the breeze too much, but all of a sudden my trim wasn't doing the job anymore, and I found myself trying to maneuver around the branches of this tree, and it was getting a little bit now I'm tucked in there underneath the tree, and I'm trying to get out in front, and you'll see the tilting of the camera as I try to maneuver out. Things seemed to be going all right, and then all of a sudden I clipped the branch and down we went all the way to the ground. Voila. So we give it another try here. I took off from my hand, and we decided, okay, let's see if we can stretch this out. But I think I forgot. One of the arms may not have been stretched back around properly, and before you know it, you couldn't even count to 10, and I was back into it. And that's it.